A tropical wave out in the Atlantic will likely become Hurricane Gabrielle here in the coming days. Here to give you the latest information that we have. We're going to get very detailed in this update for you folks, as there's been some changes over the last 24 to 48 hours that favor more of a threatening scenario. So we're going to get very detailed on model runs, guidance, everything. We'll have a section of the video. We'll kind of geek out with you guys a little bit, discuss steering currents, what could promote weakening or strengthening of this system in the short to medium term. We got it all in this video. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling tonight. Hope you guys are doing well, and thank y'all for joining us. This is working, so we're good to go. So where's our tropical wave? First off, I'll say that this is the entire MDR, what we call the main development region of the Atlantic. This time of the year, it can start to get very active out here in this portion of the ocean. So, of course, this is Africa, this is South America, this is the Lesser Antilles, and this is everything in between. Where is our tropical wave? It's right here. And I know that this area that I'm circling doesn't look any different than, say, all this or this, but this is our actual area of interest right here, and this has actually been dubbed an Invest 91L per the National Hurricane Center. So not only me, but many other people, the experts, everybody in the weather community has their eyes on this for tropical development. So this is what we're watching. This little blob of color, convection shower and storm activity indicated by the colors you see on your screen, will likely become a hurricane sometime over the next several days. It's pretty wild to think about how these hurricanes start off with just an area of disorganized shower and storm activity, but that's how they start. So let's go on and move past this and look at the latest from the National Hurricane Center. This was from the 2 p.m. update. We'll have another update in about an hour and a half or so, but this is now up to a 90% chance to develop. You know, X marks the spot, in this case a red X, which means we have a high risk of development. So in the discussion it says, you know, environmental conditions are favorable for additional development of this system, and a tropical depression is likely to form by this weekend. Of course, this has to become a tropical storm to take the next name, which is the G name, Gabrielle, and I have a feeling we will be saying the name Gabrielle a lot over the next 1 to 2 weeks for sure. So this is the latest. It does have a 60% chance to develop between now and the next 48 hours, I want to add also. So it could get its act together pretty fast, and suddenly we have a named storm by the time we get into, say, Saturday or something. But let's go over all the model runs that we got. So we're going to start this off by looking at the Euro. All right, but I want to compare this Euro run with the Euro run last night, because I think that, I don't want to say this and then be totally wrong, but I'm going to say it because this is what I think. I think that the operational Euro run was a little bit of a blimp, and I'll talk about why here in a second. But we're going to start off all these operational runs off with Saturday afternoon. So you see 21Z, ignore that. That's just Zulu time. SAT Saturday, September 6th, right? So we got a weak low pressure out here. All right, 1010 millibar low. That's a pretty weak low pressure. Still not even a storm at this point. We take this into Sunday, okay? That millibar number is beginning to drop somewhat, so 1,007 millibar low. Then we get into Monday of next week, still not strengthening much. And then we take this to, say, Tuesday of next week. It's just maintaining strength. On this the latest run of the Euro, it doesn't really strengthen this at all. We take this all the way out into Wednesday morning, and it's still just a tropical depression, tropical wave. It's kind of an odd run, but who knows? This could be a start of a trend to something. And I don't want to just not show you the Euro just because it shows you a weaker scenario, right? I know there's a lot of people that, you know, say that people that do what I do just show the worst case scenarios. We don't do that on this channel. So I want to show you everything. This run of the Euro gets whatever this is at this point into Wednesday morning into the Lesser Antilles, the Leeward Islands, Windward Islands, etc. And then slips this into the Caribbean. One thing I want you to take from this run is how south this wave is. A few days ago, everybody and their cousin was saying this is going to stay out to sea. It was just a grand assumption that everybody has been making over the last several days. But I have no idea why we would make an assumption like that when we're talking about a wave that hasn't even developed into a tropical cyclone yet. So we're 1 week from today. So this is next, Thursday evening, and this pretty much falls apart. I mean, there's nothing really else to show you after this. But if we look at the run from overnight, last night, it has a Category 1 or 2 hurricane heading right towards the Lesser Antilles. So it's odd to me that the Euro just completely doesn't lose the system, but it never even develops into a named storm. And we have a hurricane on the run from last night that I showed you in this morning's video, going through the Leeward Islands, the Virgin Islands, and eventually doing some odd stuff as it gets into Southwest Atlantic. And we'll just stop it right there. I'm going to be interested to see what the Euro model says overnight tonight. So let's go to the GFS run. And this is still running. We got about 10 days worth of it because this is such a new run that it hasn't even completed its entire run cycle yet. Same thing. We'll start off Saturday around midday, early afternoon, September the 6th. And here it is on your screen. GFS continues to like the idea of this developing faster. Already has a borderline Category 1 hurricane by early next week, next Monday, September the 8th. And we continue to cruise this forward. Category 2 hurricane by next Tuesday, September the 9th. And then it has about a Category 2 or so hurricane heading right towards the Lesser Antilles. So you got the Euro and the GFS showing this kind of scenario. So it's gone to bump it a little bit closer. And this is new to me too. I hadn't even looked at the latest GFS. I was preparing this video and didn't even have a chance to go back and look at this. So we're going to break this down. And this is real time for me right now for you because I'll drop the video later. But anyways, here it comes. We actually have a sub 970 millibar low hurricane going right through the Lesser Antilles 1 week from today. It takes a week to go from where it's at right now to the Lesser Antilles. And it's already pretty much right smack in the middle of the Central Atlantic. So this thing's going to only be moving at about 5-10 miles per hour. But we continue to move forward here. And it has a powerful hurricane. Pretty much tucked in right inside the eastern sections of the Caribbean. And then this makes landfall into the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, as a Category 2-ish hurricane. Of course, do not look at this type of stuff and make a grand conclusion that this is exactly what's going to happen. We're just going over model runs and we compare everything, right, after that. So what does the GFS do? Is this thing just going to scoot on out to sea? Well, is it going to just kind of curve and miss everybody else? Let's see what it does. So we get about 10 days out, and this thing is basically living its best life, kind of where Hurricane Aaron was a couple weeks ago as a borderline major Category 3 hurricane. 963, I mean, that would be a strong Category 2, maybe a Category 3 hurricane. So where does it go after this? We're not sure, but this thing is starting to rapidly intensify as we go all the way out to Monday morning, September the 15th. Folks, this isn't even Monday morning of next week. This is Monday morning of the week after. Okay, September the 15th. And we got one more frame there. 950 millibar low. That's no doubt a major hurricane if this is the way it was to play out. And this thing is slowing down. And my worry is you know, something funky steering current wise is going to happen in this time frame in this area. But this is so far out, we shouldn't get too hung up on it. So I'll try to go back to this run and finish it for you. But I do want to kind of talk about some hurricane model runs too. The HFA model has about a tropical storm about right here next Tuesday. So there's your the Lesser Antilles, Leeward Islands, Puerto Rico. So it has this starting to slowly strengthen at this point. Next Tuesday morning, so getting closer, right? The HFB model has this a little bit of a stronger system, 997. That would certainly be a tropical storm next Tuesday. Okay, what about ensemble guidance? The Euro ensemble really, remember, makes up 51 members. On this output on Weather Nerds, it throws all the members on the screen for us. So please don't think there's like 30 or 40 low pressures out here. That's not what it is. If a member develops a low, it's going to put an L on your screen, and then it'll show how strong that member gets it or weak it is. So here it is. One thing you'll notice as we're getting into about next Wednesday morning, how slow and how fast some of these members are. Some of these members get this all the way into the Lesser Antilles by next Wednesday morning. Some of them have them hanging pretty far back. So man, I think the models are still trying to figure out so much. Not with just trying to gauge how strong this system is or how weak it is, but also steering currents, the speed of these steering currents. I mean, there's so much being figured out right now in guidance. But you continue to get about a week out from right now, and man, there is some very strong members in here. I know that This might show up a little small on your screen, but I mean, I see a 922 millibar low. That would be a Category 5 hurricane. And there's just a lot of members that are hurricane strength in here. And look how many members just kind of go right into, let's just go on and get a little bit closer for you folks. Okay, this is 1 week from right now. Look how many members go right into the Leeward Islands and the Lesser Antilles. Some of them do begin to hook north and miss everybody. And then we can go past this and we can go all the way out to, say, day 10. All right? And then what happens after this? You would think your immediate assumption might be, and let's take a broader look at this. Your immediate assumption might be that all these members are just going to stay out to sea. Well, I wouldn't assume that based off some of these crazy runs that I've seen with the models trying to iron out what we call an upper low over the southeast and ridging building on top of areas of the southwest Atlantic. That would potentially slow any tropical system. It would prevent it from easily escaping and remaining out to sea. So what about the GFS ensemble? This is what it looks like. Remember, this only makes up 21 members, so naturally you're not going to see as many L's on your screen. And this goes out 1 week, and a lot of these members, about 10 or so, kind of, well, maybe a little less than 10, kind of plow this right into the Caribbean islands. So, but you can tell that some of these members don't even develop something. And let's see if we have the 18Z run up yet, and we don't. So we can actually take a look at some of the hurricane models. This is global and hurricane models. And this goes out between now and the next, I believe this is the next, basically the next week. Okay, so most of these are now making a line straight to the Lesser Antilles. Now, some of them are a little bit further north, but you look at the intensity track of this, and a lot of these members, if they're not at hurricane status within the next 100 hours or so, the next few days, that they're creeping close to hurricane status. So let's go back and look at that GFS run. How many more members do we have? Not many. But man, this thing is bogging down. It's probably about to do something crazy. If you look at the run before this, look what it does here. It's crazy. It continues to blow my mind. All the people a few days ago that were just flooding, not just the comments on my social media platforms, but everybody's that does the weather. But the trendy thing to say the last several days is this is going to be a fish storm. And I don't know if because everybody's thoughts and mind are kind of skewed a bit from covering Hurricane Aaron. But listen, we track everything all the way until it fades into oblivion, just like we did with Aaron. It seemed like we were talking about Aaron, for 15 days. The GFS from this afternoon showed a hurricane going through the Bahamas, and then sort of a scenario where it makes a landfall as a tropical storm in southern Florida, and then it actually gets north, develops back into a hurricane, then hits the Carolina coastline. So that is a funky run, right? And who's to say that the next GFS run isn't about to do something crazy itself? But we don't have the entirety of the run yet. And really, guys, after 10 days, really after 7 days, it don't matter what in the world this says, but all we have to do is kind of look at the upper pattern. But kind of the last couple things that we'll discuss here is I think that this will have an opportunity in the shorter term to strengthen. I think, like it says in the discussion from the National Hurricane Center, the environment out ahead of this system over the next few days will support slow development of this system, gradual development. So I think that this could become a tropical storm. The big question is how south does it hang? If it hangs very far south, it'll kind of miss what we call an upper level low or a tut that can bring a lot of wind shear into these tropical systems any time of the year during hurricane season. And this introduces dry air into the cyclonic circulation of these systems. So I want to start this around Sunday morning, September the 7th. This is a 1001 millibar low. You can see there's air being dispersed out away from the system pretty well. So the cyclonic flow of the system goes like this, but air basically on top of the system is being dispersed outward. This allows for more air to rise. That gets dispersed outward. And what we're looking at here is 200 millibar flow. So this is winds at like 40,000 feet up in the air, which is way above the actual tropical system itself. So air is being dispersed outward like this. Okay, like that. It gets a little bit weird over here, but we won't focus so much on those little details. So at this point, the environment favors strengthening. Okay, and you can see how that number begins to drop in response to that. It goes down to the 990s, and it actually, I believe, dips all the way down to a 989 millibar low. And we'll stop it here. This is for Monday, midday. So there's the HFB model. I'm not saying this is exactly what's going to happen, how this evolves. I'm showing you kind of the shorter to medium term difficulties of this system, or maybe not difficulties. You see this blue area. This is where we have higher level winds in the upper levels of the atmosphere, 40-ish thousand feet up in the air. So winds are kind of blasting like this, and this is kind of working up against the storm. The kind of cyclonic flow of the storm itself could allow for some outflow at first, but then there's a lot of flow that kind of works up against the storm here, creating some wind shear. So therefore, you're going to see this number, because there's some sort of upper level feature here, begin to rise again because it weakens. You can really see it here. You can see how winds are kind of blasting up against this storm right here. And in response, this system gets some dry air in it from some wind shear. Kind of eats away the moist air on the west side of the system. And, if we continue to kind of go after this, the system does try to recover at the very end. But I do think some things will prevent this from really exploding in strength in the shorter term. But there's a lot of model runs that have this just trucking through kind of the same similar area as a hurricane, like the GFS. But the GFS kind of has it a little bit further south. Here's a great representation of this. Watch how this system begins to strengthen as that millibar begins to drop. You can see it has a nice, moist, kind of compact area around the low-level circulation. The brown is dry air. Okay, the green is moist air. And then it starts to get blasted with wind shear. Okay, and then all of a sudden you kind of see where there's a lot of dry air that kind of gets involved into the system. So all your, almost said green air, all your moist air now is on the east side of the system. There's not as much green that you're seeing on this side of the system, which is moist air. You're starting to see more dry air, some of that brown kind of getting right up against the heart and soul of the system, which is the low-level circulation. And that's because wind shear blasts the system like this from, I would say, probably the west or southwest. So that's something to watch in kind of the shorter term, medium term of this system as far as strengthening or weakening. Okay, and you can see it. It kind of looks like it's cut in half moisture-wise. So hope that makes sense. Now, steering currents, we can discuss this until the cows come home, but, I think we got a long time before we figure this one out. But our actual low pressure itself is right here. See this little blue dot on your screen? We're going to take a look at the GFS. So we're going to use black. It's a low pressure right here. This area right here, this is high pressure or a ridge. This is a trough. Upper trough, lower pressure is in the blue. Higher pressure is in the warmer colors, the orange, yellows, red you see on your screen. Steering around high pressure goes like this in this case. So steering is kind of going up here. It's going like down here. That's an ugly arrow. It's going like this. And it's going like this. So, your steering of this system is going what? East to west, right? So this is why this system's going to, kind of continue to chug east to west, is because it's kind of following the flow of the bottom flank of this Atlantic high pressure, this ridge, right? So one thing I want to watch is kind of like this area, is that little upper level low, or this little tut is in place and kind of puts a little bit of a weird sort of dent in the ridge here. You can see it. You see this other area in blue here. That is kind of that tut or that upper level low that's kind of eating away at the bottom edge of this ridge. So the ridge is really shifted this way. So you continue, right? And you're thinking, if I'm looking at this and I don't know what happens after, I'm thinking, okay, well, this should have a weakness to begin to kind of go this way, especially if it's gaining strength like the GFS is showing. Well, the ridge tries to recover and build back on top of the system. You see how some of those whites begin to fill in with some of the yellows? So all of a sudden, this is kind of making this go further, stay further in latitude, stay further south. But there is another opening that happens. I'm going to have to reset this run. Here we go. There is another opening that happens for this to escape right here. You see how you have a lot of white showing up? There's kind of a weakness in the ridge. So will this fill that weakness? It absolutely will. And you see how this begins to turn? There's a wide open weakness now here being created by this upper trough right here. So this is kind of cutting into the ridge. So now there's a wide open weakness right here, okay, for this to kind of escape and turn. But will it? Will it? Watch what happens after this. Okay, trough is right there. It can feel the influence of it. On this particular run, is this trough going to grab the system? It does. See how it captures it right at the end? Watch this. It looks like it's about to escape. This thing looks like it's about to get close to the East Coast. On this particular run, boom, capture. It's a great representation of it, in my opinion. The trough captures what would be Gabrielle, and then helps to yank it. At least we can see at the end of the run. It helps to kind of yank it and kind of keep it out to sea on this particular run. Of course, we need to watch Bermuda, right? Now, what happens on the run prior to this, like that crazy GFS run from earlier this afternoon? What happens here? That trough is in place, but it's not as pronounced, right? So here it comes. Here comes Gabrielle trying to find that weakness, but it misses the trough, and then a ridge builds right back on top of it. And then this gets carried along the flow of that ridge, just like this, further to the west. So that's the difference. There's a massive difference, and then the ridge builds on top of it, and then we get just a bunch of weird stuff that happens after that. So that's a huge difference. That's a huge difference. Like, here's the GFS from earlier this afternoon. Here's the current GFS. You see that difference there? It's a pretty big difference. So, hope that makes sense. We'll continue to re-go over all this information. Appreciate the support. God bless all y'all. We'll do it again tomorrow morning. Y'all have a wonderful night.